not here to sell your house. I'm sorry to bother you. I just had a really quick question and I was wondering if you could help me.
Let's roll over to a little bit of the scripting. You spot a pretty good for rent by owner and you're like, hey, this is a good opportunity. You set yourself up on a safe search on Zillow is one of the kind of manual ways that you do it. So you go to Zillow, you go for rent, you pick your area, and then you ask Zillow to send you, are you on an immediate or are you on the daily option?
I believe I'm on the daily option, but the truth is a lot of times there's so many apartments and I've narrowed the search, but when I'll go in, I will do it manually. When I'm ready for an hour of power of Zillow time, I'm going to go in and lock it up more manually. But definitely, just because when you go on the immediate search, the majority, at least in Santa Barbara, a lot of the rental options are just condos, apartments managed by big property management companies. And that's not worth your time dialing those, of course.
Got it. Yep.
But yeah, but what I'll do is I'll do homes and townhouses and I'll go by zip code sometimes and I'll just be like, boom,
just pull them up and then you'll just scan through.
Scan and be like, this is a for sure rent by owner.
Yep. Love it. Cool. So we spot a for rent by owner. Now, is there an initial call or an initial text? Let's walk through what the scripting and communication strategy is.
So here's one important thing to know. Sometimes on Zillow, it's like a redirect number. So I always start with an initial call. If you were to text the number, it would bounce. So sometimes to get the number, if it's one of the redirect Zillows, you're gonna have to go into Property Radar and they might not always have, but always I'm gonna start with a call. There's a couple different strategies as an opener. One strategy is if I have a buyer for it, I might pitch that kind of off the immediate. And I always am trying to be super low pressure and basically be like, that's my mindset. So I'll be like, hey, Patrick, I'm really sorry for the random call. I know you're probably getting a lot of calls already about 123 Banana Street. I'm not personally looking to rent it. I know you have it listed for rent, but I had a strange question. I have a client, first time buyers, they have a dog, they have a kid on the way, they love the neighborhood. Would you ever consider an offer if it was compelling enough? I assume you're just gonna hold on to it as a rental, but I just had to ask. That's a great opener and it's low pressure. I'm just trying to be inquisitive and that's a great kind of icebreaker, especially if you have a buyer. And I put together a lot of deals like that. Sometimes I'm double ending them, sometimes they're representing themselves, but that's a great strategy. And you can honestly start your Zillow for rent by owner search, maybe with your sheet of buyers that you're looking for right there and there. So you can be like, ooh, I'm gonna start connecting. And then, you're going to look great to your buyers too. And just be like, hey, I just had this conversation with these people. They might consider selling not this year, but next year. And I'm just trying to dig up other opportunities for you.
Yep. That's beautiful.
And you had number one.
Yeah. Having the buyer is huge. And then integrating that everybody into your buyer consultation. As I've also said when you write an offer that doesn't get accepted, this is on the list the next day after you wake up from your hangover from too much tequila or too many bottles of wine. Then your steps are to go down the list of these. And then in the middle, is there any for rent by owners that you could call and do that exact script for the buyer that you just wrote an offer? So brilliant. I love it. Inside of your scripting, there's a lot of unique value that you're offering in there. And there's a framework in there that is really powerful.
Okay. So you're starting off by being inquisitive and also apologetic that they're getting a handful of calls about this property already, especially if it's a mom and pop, maybe her name is Shui. It's like you can tell they might be older and this is probably a lot more work than they're used to doing. So you're going to start off instead of being like, hello, Patrick, this is Avi from Berkshire Hathaway. They're probably a little inundated with calls already. So let's just try to be a little bit more apologetic. And I'm going to say, hey, Patrick, I'm sorry for the call. I know you're probably getting a lot of calls already about 123 Banana Street. They might not be getting calls. The number's public out there. And so it's a good way to just get your foot in the door. And immediately they're like, okay, this person's not a pushy salesperson. This person's a normal gut person. I'm framing that if I have the buyer conversation, it's a crazy question. I'm sorry for asking this wild question out of left field, even though it's probably already on their mind. If they're having it for rent, they've maybe owned it for a lot of years. They don't have as much attachment to it. Obviously, if they're to sell it, they don't have to move out and go somewhere else. We signed 3 listings this past week and all of them are non-owner occupied landlords. Because obviously when people have to sell their house and they have to move, it's just a lot more emotional, it's a lot more work. But if your tenants are out of the house anyways, it's just a decision instead of being a whole ordeal and a move. So they're already probably thinking about it, but you're gonna pretend like it's an outlandish question. You're gonna say, Patrick, I know you have listed this home for rent. I assume you're not going to ever sell it. It's such a great location. You hype them up, you make them feel good about their investment. You said, I assume you're probably never going to sell it, but I had to ask. I have clients that really love the neighborhood, really like the property type, really like the area or whatever. And you say, would you ever consider an offer if it was compelling enough? And that's another one too. Instead of saying, would you sell it? That's a completely different question. Because then maybe they're thinking, oh, maybe he's going to lowball me. Maybe he's just a snarky investor. But you said, would you consider an offer if it was compelling enough? I own investment property. If an offer was compelling enough, Tom talked about that too at his listing edge. Like they sold their house because the offer was compelling enough, even though they weren't real seller exactly. So that's a great way to get your foot in the door. And oftentimes you're going to say, what would that offer look? And then you have a green light to at least provide some value, get a CMA going, go meet them at the house, just talk about it. That's how my foot will get in the door. And I'll do a CMA and I'll say, here's what you could probably sell it for for now. And they might be like, you know what, I think we're going to hold on to it for another year or two. It's a lot of capital gains. We don't know what we want to do with the money yet. And then at that point, I'm already face to face and I can say, well, if you need help finding a tenant, if you need help with property management, they already trust me, like me. I can offer other services. It's not like an upsell, it's almost like a downsell, but it's a great way to basically say, we charge very fair rates because what I want to do is the opportunity to earn your business. So when it does come time to sell, I would love to be your go-to guy. And people love that. And that's one that you taught me.
All right, let's go back to, I don't have a buyer.
Yep.
And then you're just prospecting and you're just trying to find a motivated potential seller. Can we start there and break down what the strategy was? That was a great breakdown, by the way, on that last one. That was super useful.
You can still say, hey, would you ever consider an offer if it was compelling enough, even if you don't have the buyer? You just obviously can't say, I have a buyer interested. I bet there's an agent in your office that has a buyer who's interested. And I bet, obviously, if you list it, you're going to find some type of buyer. And you can also talk about, let's say, hey, Patrick, would you ever consider an offer on that one? I know you have it listed for rent, but would you consider an offer as compelling enough? And he goes, do you have someone that's looking to buy it? And you can say, me personally, I don't have anyone right now that's a perfect fit for this, but we have a handful of options of how we can find you a buyer that might pay a really great price. We can do it office exclusive pocket listing. We can network with the other agents in our marketplace without it actually going on the market. And of course, if you wanted to receive top dollar, I could talk about our full marketing strategy that's going to get it seen by thousands of potential buyers. And people are like, oh, so that's a great way to get your foot in the door there. And also you can say, hey, Patrick, you can on Zillow, what's cool is you can see the days that it's listed and the number of applications and the number of saves or something like that. So you can see, let's say if Patrick's house has been on the market for 3 weeks and it has no applications and only a couple of hits, you can say, hey, Patrick, I was just wondering how things are going with that property. I see that you've had it on the market for a couple of weeks and I was wondering if you found a great tenant. And they're gonna be like, we've had showings, but we haven't found a good tenant. You can say, just so you know, me and my team, we help a lot of people like you, and we handle everything from just a simple tenant acquisition service to full on property management. Have you ever thought about getting some professional help? Because I see that you're managing this yourself. That's another way to get your foot in the door, but that's more for the rental management side. Nice. Yeah. And so it's just, you're asking these kind of thought-provoking questions in a non-pressure, inquisitive way that's going to at least spark a conversation. I follow up. Sometimes people are like, you know what, I'm going to keep going at it on my own. And I'll say, oh, I hear you, Patrick, but can I just give you a call in 2 weeks on the rare chance that you don't find a great tenant? We can revisit. And then every time, even if it's a kind of like a more harder no or a call me back later, I'm going to make sure that I do my best to get their real phone number, not just like the Zillow through number, their email. I'm setting them up with HomeBot, a market search on my Sierra Interactive website. Thanks to Patrick for hooking me up with Sierra Interactive. That's a great tool. As well as they're going to get our twice a month marketing emails, and I'm going to make sure to have a note to just check in with them. So when I follow up, I'll be following up on time, and I can say, hey, Patrick, it's Avi, just following up as I promised I would. I know we talked 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to see if you found a great tenant yet or how things are going. So that's a system, and I'm plugging in a lot of great contacts doing this. I did a live training for my mastermind group, and on my second call, I set an appointment that the guy was like, yeah, you can come over now. And it was pretty cool to be like, I'm doing a training, and I'm like literally talking about setting appointments, and I got to leave and go on an appointment.
Exactly.
It's that easy sometimes. And you'll be surprised if you do this strategy consistently, how many appointments you'll book at a high conversion rate.
Yeah. And just your 3-stack long-term nurture value proposition.
Yep.
Avi and his team, they have a really good email newsletter that they've been sending twice a month. And the group puts together something high quality. There's some good messaging there. It's not just a bunch of drip campaign BS. Yep. You've got the property updates, the market updates where they're seeing the trades, new listings, under contract, solds, compliments of Sierra Interactive on that one. And then of course the HomeBot stack. And then just as a reminder, you took that one listing where the old guy printed out every one of the HomeBot reports, which was great. A year later. And for those of you guys, just as a reminder, I think the listings I took in Solana Beach, I was an absentee owner, and it was a very similar conversation. I didn't know that it was not tenant occupied at the moment. I was just calling down the list. She picked up the phone. She was in that state of, I'm not sure if I should sell it or if I should keep it. And then she ended up deciding to keep it, but she was actually pretty open to the conversation. She was very nice. I put her on back then, marked snapshot. 1 year later, she basically calls me and says, hey, I really appreciate you setting all that stuff. We're now interviewing to sell the property. And so my friends, just as a reminder, we've got all these great tools between HomeBot, your MLS, all these simple tools today to be able to long-term nurture these sellers. Hey everybody, the first appointment setting game event was a success. For those of you who've been following along the channel and learning about the tag event at the Tom Ferry headquarters in Orange County, beautiful building, his amazing facility. We hosted 40 real estate agents, 100% focused on booking appointments. And we ended up with roughly 3,600 dials out, 512 conversations recorded, 84 appointments booked, 92 new lead opportunities discovered. We had such a blast. I just want to make sure that everybody has a good time. If you're brand new to making cold calls, to make those first calls, generate those first leads, and get over the hump. I had Michelle, she says, hey, thank you so much for getting me back on the horse with my discipline of prospecting. And then she said, the listing appointment that I booked, they're going to go with us. I got a great text from Brandon, a picture of the listing contract signed from the appointment that he booked at the event. Here's the problem. We're just working on the logistics of the next session and the calendar. To learn more is to go down below and just get yourself signed up on the wait list. I can just give you the direct announcements of when the next event is so that you can make sure that you reserve your spot before anyone else. I'm assuming these events will sell out. There's not enough room to have a lot of people in there. If you sign up for the wait list, I will also add you into my sales conversion newsletter. This week, I'm going to be interviewing Avi Becker on his entire breakdown of the absentee owner, the scripting, the mindset, the tool, the resources, everything that he's doing. So just go down below, get signed up. I look forward to having you at that next event.